Good Wednesday evening, listeners, and welcome to another edition of Conversations of a Sister here on our YouTube channel. I thank you for tuning in tonight. For those of you who may be tuned in live, I thank you for tuning in. And maybe for some of you who are going to catch the rewind, I guess you'll catch the rewind. What I wanted to talk about tonight was single people. I'm just going to say single people, singles and single women preparing for marriage. I'm hearing that a lot. I'm hearing if single women are preparing for marriage. Now, when I say or ask the question if single women are preparing for marriage, I'm not talking about playing house. I'm talking about actually preparing for marriage. And who is preparing single women for marriage? Who's teaching single women how to be nurturing? Are they getting that from examples, or is this something that they're learning from television? I think that the television aspect of it is not realistic. I think the realistic aspect of it is on the hands on hands training. I don't want to say on the hands, on the job training. Now, when I say on the job training, I'm still not talking about playing house. I'm talking about knowing what it is and learning how to prepare a home, build a home, sustain sustain a husband, sustain a family, be loving, and be nurturing. Those are the things that I am talking about. And I think that young women can only get that from examples in their lives. I think that for me, my example was uh, the marriage of my parents. That taught me how to be a wife. But I think that when I wrote my first book, Conversations of a Sister, I really didn't understand what it was to prepare to be a wife the way I would understand it now. And of course, that's because I'm a lot older and much wiser. I think that I've learned a lot with how to care for a man and how I would take care of my man. So I think that when they say that it's better to marry when you're older, no, it's better. Let me get the saying right. Uh, it's better to wait long than marry wrong. And I guess that saying goes because some people get married when they're young and they wind up divorced 10, 15, 16 years later. And I don't know if they consider it marrying wrong or if they considered what they have as expired. I don't know. But that's only something that individuals can answer. But I hear a lot how a lot of young women are not prepared to be wives. They don't know how to be a wife. A lot of young women don't know how to be wives. Well, I have some young women in my family who are wives, and I've seen them in action, and I think that they know how to be good wives. And I think that in order to be, for a young woman to be a good wife, she has to be supported by a loving, understanding, patient, and nurturing husband because it takes two people to support a union, not just the wife. The wife is going to build the home, but it takes two individuals to make it stable. The woman could build that house on sand, or she could build that house on a solid foundation. So, what's the difference? I think a solid foundation is knowing what you want, praying about the compromise or even compromising, and knowing what your deal breakers are. So, what are your deal breakers? What are the deal breakers for some single women? Some single women won't tolerate cheating. Some single men want a clean house. Some single women want open communication. Both individuals should want open communication. Apologizing is a plus, and finances are definitely crucial. And I've said that on so many of my other podcasts that discussing finances are very crucial because I'm going to say 9 out of 10 marriages, nah, 5 out of 10 marriages end because of finances. Oh, he lost his job. Oh, she lost her job. I think that no two people are more tested when they're dealing with a financial crisis than in any other time in their relationship. So, does he like to save while she likes to spend? Do she like to pay bills? Why while he likes to travel? All of these things need to be worked out before you say, I do. And all of these things you need to find out and become familiar with before you say, I do. Because finances are the biggest issue in relationships today. Who's going to pay the rent? Or who's going to pay the mortgage? How are we going to save? How much are we going to save? Are we going to get a joint account? Or are we going to save separate accounts? Well, we got to have a joint account. Who's going to pay the bills? Is it going to be her? Is it going to be him? All of these things have to be discussed before there can be a marriage. Now, back in my 20s and in my 30s, I really wasn't aware of that. I really wasn't privy to it. I didn't have the knowledge financially that I have now. But I think the part that blows my mind is that my father taught me, he started to teach me at a young age. And you know how it is when you're just doing something, but you're going through the motion? Well, that was me. I was doing something, but I was just basically going through the motion. I do not or did not understand what my father was doing until a little bit later in life. Now, I was going through the motion when I was maybe making not that much money. So it was okay. You know, I wasn't really serious about finances. And I think that I was still my father's, I don't know, I was still his student. He was still teaching me. And that was fine because I was young. But still, these are not principles that I knew to apply if I was getting married. I don't think finances would have been discussed because the men that I had the potential to marry, of course, they had money. And of course, I would know how to handle their money because I was handling my father's. My father was teaching me how to handle finances at an early age. I didn't learn to really know how to apply them and how to regard them until I got older. So these things are crucial now with young women when preparing for marriage. Finances. That's very important. Do you want to get out of debt? Do you want to not be in debt? Is he in debt? Does he want to go deeper in debt? These are all the things that need to be discussed before you say I do, before two becomes one. These are the discussions that need to be had. Why? Because you need to know where you are going to be in life upon building together with that person. You can't build with someone who is determined to be broke. You can't build with someone who is determined not to help you carry the bricks. It takes two people, and finances are important. It's an important discussion to have. Now, while you're dating, if you're dating a man who is careless with his finances, he doesn't have a credit card to his name, and he has bad credit, those are all red flags. And they're red flags that should not be ignored. And if you're dating a woman who doesn't have a credit card to her name, and the only thing she cares about is you paying for her to get her nails done, which you shouldn't be. You may be paying her car note, which you shouldn't be. She should be showing you that she has some type of independence aside from depending on you before marriage. This is something that you need to see because, again, these are all finances. And if it's an issue, that's a red flag. Now, if you're young, then and you want to learn, then you have the ability to learn. But this is all in preparation. If we are preparing for marriage, single people, these are things that we need to consider. I was talking to this friend of mine the other week, and I had asked him about his daughter because he had a daughter, and the last time we spoke, she had gotten married. And he said to me, "Oh, yeah, no, she's divorced now." And I was really surprised because she hadn't been married that long. And he said, after they got married, he stopped working. And she was basically carrying him and the household. Hmm, really? He was like, yeah. And she couldn't wait to get divorced because he became a weight. That was like a weight. So I'm wondering, wow, how long did he work before that? You know, don't get me wrong. In life, things happen. You know, we lose jobs, but we move on to the next. These situations should only be temporary, they should not be permanent because you have to go from A to B, from C to D. You have to travel down this road called life on an alphabet highway. But we have to, by golly, keep moving, especially when we have the responsibility of a spouse and a household. But these are the things that happen in this game called life. That is why it's best to have a discussion so that you have a plan. You got to have a plan. And if you don't have a plan, you want to at least have a cushion because my father taught me that you should always have something to put your hands on. Daddy, what do you mean by that? Always have money in the bank, something to put your hands on, something that you can fall back on. You need a cushion. It's not going to always be sunny days. There are some days where it's going to rain. How are you going to deal with that? So, in preparing for marriage, if you're in a courtship, if you're in a relationship, you have to see this individual in all of their seasons. You want to see everything about them. This way, when you say I do, there are no surprises. So, what about the women who prepare? What about the women who solely prepare for marriage, but the man does not? Let me tell you about those women. What they do is they go into the marriage thinking that the man's going to change. That's what they think. They actually think that the man's going to change. And they think that they can help him into this particular change. But then the change never comes because you cannot change an individual. An individual has to want to grow and to learn and to excel with you and appreciate what it is that you bring to that table. If they don't, they're going to jump ship and they may jump ship prematurely. But if you were prepared and you went in prepared, as a loving spouse, that's something that they'll regret later in life. Okay, so let's talk about me for a minute. I'm single, you know, I'm still single, and I'm kind of glad about it. You want to know why? Because I think that if I would have married some of the jokers that I could have married, I would be dealing with some things right now. Things that would probably stress me out more than the norm of being stressed. For example, I am, I have gotten so much sharper when it comes down to finances. And that's the first thing I listen for when I'm talking to a man. I want to hear what he says about certain things. I want to know what he says so that I can determine whether or not he's good with finances or not. This is one of the things that my father prepared me for without me even knowing that I was being prepared for it. So now what I'm saying is there are certain things that I look for now in this season that I would not have known in the seasons before. Because I think that my father knew that he had to instill in me something to take with me that was going to benefit me and to benefit a spouse. But it can only benefit a spouse who's going to appreciate the knowledge that I have to either match his or to teach him in the interim. Because you have to kind of balance each other out, especially when you're not even, when it's not an even kill. So it's like if he's good with finances, okay, you're going to handle the finances, we'll handle the finances together. Or is that something you'd rather I do? But he needs to know that it's something that I can do. You don't want your man coming home and the lights are not on. And you don't want somebody so irresponsible that they'll be like, well, I didn't pay the light bill because I wanted to get my nails done. I didn't pay the light bill because I had to get my hair done. You don't want that. You want someone who knows what responsibility is and who knows how to take care of your household. That's what you want. And both individuals want that because a partnership is supposed to be one being able to lean on the other when one is weaker. Like my friend whose daughter got divorced because her husband just stopped working. He didn't want to work. He was comfortable with her carrying him and her carrying the household, but she was not. She was not comfortable in that situation. And I think that when he asked her, how is she doing? She said, I'm doing 1,000 times better because I'm no longer carrying that. I no longer have that weight. Because when you're pulling someone in a direction that they don't want to go, that's weight. You are carrying weight. You are carrying the weight of that person's unwillingness to grow. Because you want somebody that is going to meet you on your level. So what she did was she kicked him and his bad habits to the curb because eventually she knew that he was going to bring her down because it's possible to bring someone down. I was dating someone who always had a problem. He always had a problem. If it wasn't a financial problem, it was this problem. If it wasn't that problem, it was that problem. And I was always trying to help him solve it. But then I realized he has to solve them himself. He has to come to grips with what he needs and do it. And when I did not see the change, that was my red flag. That, oh no, this is a no go. I imagine my life with this person. And I'm like, wow, if they're constantly coming to me when they need something, then that's not good because then we'll never have. And that's not the goal in a relationship. The goal is to grow. I have a cousin who's married. She got married young. Well, I think in her mid 30s, she got married. And her husband was good in real estate. So what he did was he taught her how to become good in real estate. And she maximized what he taught her. And now I think she owns properties in almost every other city because, after all, if you're going to hook up with somebody, you need to hook up with somebody that's going to enhance you, somebody where you see that you're going to grow. And they say, you have a lot of men on Instagram saying that a woman don't know her purpose until she meet a man. I think a man don't know his purpose until he meets the right woman. And I think that either party can abort that purpose. They may fulfill the purpose in another way, but I think that they could easily abort it as well. But you have to want to be there in order to do so. So when we are preparing for marriage, what are the things you look for? What are the things you're going to look out for? You're going to make sure that that person is compatible. You're going to make sure that you're on one accord with finances. And if you're not, that's the one real thing to consider. You need to see all seasons of his life, whatever those seasons are: anger, happiness, broke, sad, poor, happy. You need to see all the seasons in each other's lives. You need to see what that's like. Because if you don't know what that's like, you're not going to know how to prepare. And then we have those women who hate being single. I was on Instagram earlier and I saw a post. It was a post of women. It was a bunch of women. It was like a slideshow of different women crying. And the caption was, they're crying because they're single. They're crying because they go to bed at night single. They're crying because they're in their 30s, their 40s, and their 50s, and they're not married. So they go to bed crying. They don't have children, so they're upset. They don't have a man, so they're upset. So you don't have a man, you're single, and you're going to bed crying every night. What does that do? Because this is like their main focus. They're focused on the fact that you're single. They're in their late 40s, late 30s. Because some people have a timeline. I had a timeline. For those of you who read my book, Conversations with a Sister, I had a timeline. I wanted to be married by the time I was 30. That didn't happen. So what was I supposed to do? Throw myself off a cliff? Just stab myself because I wasn't married? I think that women go through it. Maybe even men go through it. I don't know. I'm not a man. I don't know. But yeah, I'm thinking about a man. Yeah, they go through it too. And I think this is what's important for those of you who are single and you hate being single and you're mad because you're single, or you feel like I have something on my lip, or you feel like you're not with somebody because you're single, or life is over because you're single, or you're doomed because you're single with no children. I don't think that's the case. I think what's happening is that we're focused on the wrong things. And I think when you redirect that focus, then you'll start to see things differently. Now, I'm told that not all women are the same. Some women want marriage no matter what. They want children. And this is true. Some women do want marriage. Some women do want children. But do you want it at the sake and at the expense of, I'm getting up in age, so this is what I want? Like, is that how you see it? Because if it is, those are all the wrong reasons. And the reason why I say that is because when I wrote my first book, Conversations of a Sister, and the truth and the myth about praying for a mate, because I'd actually pray for a mate. I think that at that time, I didn't know what I know now. And because I know what I know now, I see why it didn't happen. And I see it as a blessing. I really do. Because I think that had it happened or had I walked through that door, it would have been a curse that I just wouldn't have been able to deal with. Because there's certain things that are a deal breaker for me. Yeah, I will admit certain things are a deal breaker for me. And if that man would have broke that deal or any deal, I don't know how I would have taken it. In fact, I might be in jail. So I think that when you're getting a no, that's to protect you. The no is to protect you. And I know that a lot of single women, they don't want to hear that. And they don't understand that right now. But if marriage never comes, and I'm not saying that it won't, if the man never comes, what are you going to do? Are you going to kill yourself? Are you going to just keep crying yourself to sleep at night? It's not going to do it. Have faith that a man will come and then get into action. How do you get into action? Hook up with your girlfriends, travel. I have a best friend. She and I travel all the time together. People sometimes think we're gay. We don't care. I mean, we're not, but we don't care because we're besties. We're both single and we travel together. I have dinner with other girlfriends who are single and they're loving life because you have to be solid in your relationships that are non romantic because you have to have a life. You have to have a life outside of focusing on the fact that you don't have a man. Oh my God, I want a man. Oh my God, I'm crying myself to sleep every night. Do you know? I think that's pathetic. But then I also realized that these women, they're not living their full potentials. You have to get involved. You have to put yourself out there because faith without work is dead. You got to put in the work. You got to focus on yourself. And then when you focus on yourself, before you know it, that person will come. But even if that person comes, who's to say it's going to lead to marriage? At that point, you might just want companionship. You never know at what stage of life it will happen. But you can't sit around waiting and crying yourself to sleep in the meantime. You have to live your life because there is a life out there to live. And my suggestion is to get one. For those of you who are single, get a life. Take up a hobby. Build on your profession. Better yourself. Pour into you. Travel with friends. Spend time with family. Volunteer. Get your mind off of it. And at night, instead of crying yourself to sleep, curl up with a book. Burn some lavender. Go to the gym. Do a stretch. But ain't nobody ever died from not having a man. And this one guy said, oh, yeah, oh, yeah, sometimes people can't live by themselves. They can't do it. They can't do it. I have never, ever seen two coffins going in one plot. I just haven't. I have not seen it. I have not seen two coffins going into one plot. So come on. Life is too long to be thinking about, oh my God, I don't have a man. No. Get up, get out, and do something. Do something for you. And when you redirect that energy, a man will come. I thank you all for tuning in tonight. For those of you who are single, I hope you take heed to this message because society can really have you messed up. It will really have you thinking that, oh my God, I'm not married and I'm 40. Oh my God, I'm not married and the clock is ticking. The clock is ticking anyway, but you don't want the clock to tick out and you have not lived. So on that note, have a good night. We'll see you next week when next week's conversation is going to be a little bit deeper. But we'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great Wednesday. Good night.